Hey guys, today I'm going to be continuing the little series I've been making on the pros and cons of each guitar and whether the guitar is for you. Today I'm going to be doing it on the Gibson Les Paul. This right here is actually an Epiphone Les Paul, but it's still going to cover it nevertheless. Now with the pros and cons, there's not going to be any particular order or anything like that. I just have a list right here, and I'm just going to go, if it leads me to the next pro or con, I'm just going to go right to it. I'm just going to cover everything. Before I really get started with the pros and cons, I'm just going to tell you what guitar I'll be using for this video. And this is my 2014 Epiphone Les Paul Traditional Pro. I love this guitar. It's actually my favorite guitar. Oopsies, I just dropped my pick. I already have a video on it already, and I'll link it in whatever corner it's going to be in. So if you guys want to know the story about this guitar and a little bit more about it, feel free to watch that video. After you watch this one, of course. Now without further ado, let's just get started with the list. The first pro we have is just the fact that, well, you'll be able to find a Les Paul you like, and that's pretty much guaranteed. There are so many different types of Les Pauls, so many different neck shapes, sizes, different types of wood that you can get, different color options, different pickups, different tuners. They even have like those robotic tuners that, well, whether they work or not, that's a different story, but still, there are so many different options you can get in Les Pauls, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find one that you like. Now the first con we'll get into is their weight. This is actually something that I like about the guitar. Les Pauls are very heavy guitars, and even though they do make ones that are chambered out, and if you don't know what that means, well, the body's usually mahogany and the top's usually maple, and they glue them together. Before they glue on the maple top, they'll drill a bunch of holes in the mahogany to make the wood lighter, and then they'll add this over top, that way you can't really tell. I don't actually know if this one is chambered or not, but I have felt some very, very heavy Les Pauls from the 70s and 80s that definitely aren't chambered. So if you don't think you'll like a very heavy guitar, I still recommend trying one. Try putting one on the strap and see how it feels. If you hate the way it feels, then maybe a Les Paul isn't for you. But like I said, they do make some that are chambered, so try some of those, try some that aren't chambered, figure out what you like. The next pro we have is that Les Pauls are very simple guitars. You just got 2 tones, 2 volumes, a 3-way selector switch, and 2 pickups. That's it. Les Pauls are very simple guitars. There's not a lot to them, and they're really simple to use. And despite their ease of use, the weight and the simplicity kind of leads me into the ergonomics of the guitar, and that's one of their downsides. They don't really have any kind of comfort cars or anything like that. It's just a solid edge that you're going to rest your ribs against or your arm against up here. It's not the most comfortable guitar. They do make the Les Paul Modern series, which I think it's the Modern series, and they have a little bit more of a belly cut here, like a Stratocaster, and the heel right here is a little bit more sculpted, making it a little bit easier to get the higher frets. I've never played one of those, so I don't know how much more comfortable it is, or if it's even any more comfortable, but if you hate this, try one of those. Now another pro that's kind of along the same lines is Les Pauls aren't really easy guitars to play. Now it's really hard to describe this if you've never really played any guitars before, and when I first bought this instrument, I really didn't have any experience with any other instruments. Oh, any other guitars, that is. But the more and more I play other instruments, the more I realize how much harder Les Pauls are to play. Now, I like this. I like having to fight the instrument. It's like, for example, a PRS. Those notes will just kind of fall off your fingers, and it's very easy to play. This one, you really had to dig into it. You really had to play super hard in order to get the sound that you want. Now again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you want a guitar that's going to be super easy to play, maybe try looking at a Fender or a PRS instead. Now the next pro is something you may not care about, and that's that Les Paul's history are very extensive, and it's very interesting, at least to me. If you don't care about, history or anything like that, then this won't do anything for you, like I said. But I love Les Paul's history. There's so much behind it. There's so many different models, and how they came to be is really interesting. So if you like learning about history, maybe look at a Les Paul. Let's just get this next one out of the way, and that's Gibson's notorious tuning stability. I've never had any issues with any of the Gibsons I've ever played or owned. And this one, even though it's an Epiphone. It's the same thing though. I've never really had any issues with them. I actually had a lot more issues with my PRS tuning stability than these. Now that doesn't mean that all Gibson's tuning stability is perfect. That's not true, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that it's not as bad as what people say it is. You may have noticed in this video, I haven't talked about sound at all. And that's because I'm saving the best for last. Les Pauls sound incredible. In my opinion, they're my favorite sounding guitar. If I could only have one guitar out of all of these, I would keep this one 10 times out of 10. If you guys are looking for an instrument that has a very large sound that takes up a lot of space, this might be the one you're looking for. They sound so good and so big, like I said. Now the final con we'll be going over is actually the sound. Les Pauls don't always sound the best in a mix, and that's because, like I said earlier, they are such a large sound. They have a lot of high end and a lot of low end. Robert Baker made a video kind of similar to this one talking about I think it was like 5 things he didn't like about his own Les Pauls, and a big part of that video was the sound. That's not us just saying that Les Pauls sound bad. I mean, I literally just made a clip about how this sounded so good and they're my favorite sounding instrument, but they take up so much sound, it kind of dominates a lot of other things in the mix. It kind of drown out a lot of things. So if you want to record, maybe a Les Paul is not the best. If you want to have a similar sounding instrument that's also Gibson, maybe an SG might sound a little bit better for things in a mix. I don't really do much recording. I don't do any recording, actually, so that's not an issue for me. I don't play in any bands. That's not really an issue for me. If you're not going to be doing any recording, then it's not going to be an issue for you either. It's just something to keep in mind if you ever plan on doing that down the road. Now for my final closing remarks. Is a Gibson or Epiphone Les Paul for you? Something I didn't really touch on in the video is their price. Gibson Les Pauls, they are a very expensive guitar. You can get some of the specials and tributes for around $1,500–1,600 bucks, but if you want to get a standard, that's going to run you around $2,500. You can save a bunch of money and go with an Epiphone, but that's going to take away from some of the quality, and it's not going to be made in the USA, if that's important for you. If you think the pro to con ratio is worth it, then maybe a Les Paul is for you. Personally, I think they're for me. I love this instrument. It's my favorite one that I own. So, I think that just about wraps it up. So is a Les Paul for you? I don't know. That's up for you to decide. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.